Portfolios for innovation. The reason we look at portfolios for innovation, we're thinking about how do you organize all the innovative ideas and the actions that surround those innovative ideas. And so we're going to look at ways in which that happens. And so there are some premises for why organizations would have portfolios. Sometimes you can just say, well, a creative organizational culture by itself is really not enough. You know, you can be creative and you can be active and you can be inventive and you can have charged up people, but that's not good enough. You have to have some sense of organization about how innovative ideas are handled. And another factor that is important is that a linear process from beginning to end of some kind of an innovation pipeline doesn't really allow the agility and responsiveness of an organization to the changes in the marketplace or the other threats that are coming from competitors or other ideas that are surfacing in the marketplace. And so just to have a pipeline of ideas where one follows the next doesn't really work out as a portfolio idea. What you really need is some kind of an ongoing chain of internal entrepreneurial activity that actually triggers and develops new innovative initiatives. So here is an example of a diagram that really portrays how entrepreneurial events work as triggers inside of an organization. And if you look at the left-hand side, you see the infrastructure that is the normal operation and the functioning of the organization that systematically moves things from one stage to another. And on the right-hand side, you've also got to have, obviously, a creative climate that encourages a certain amount of creativity. And so there's a dynamic that's working in the middle there. So now if we move to the bottom of this diagram, you start with people who are employees, followers, and basically who are looking for ways in which to make innovative change, innovative ideas. And so as you move through that process and move into that dynamic that we call an entrepreneurial event, this is where the expression and the recognition of the value and opportunity of an innovation surfaces. And we call that an entrepreneurial event inside of an organization. And so what happens as these entrepreneurial events happen, that triggers a certain kind of change in the organization, and it also creates, as we say here, a certain amount of creative destruction. Things change. You have an entrepreneurial event about what can happen that can improve let's say, an operational process. You have a creative destruction of the old process. And so the same thing happens for something that is of value outside the organization in the marketplace. You have creative destruction of what existed formerly in the marketplace. And so all of this moves to the leadership of an organization to try and decide what to do with this. And this is where we come back to the idea of innovation portfolios and why they are important. So let's first look at three forms of innovation. We can look at innovation in very simple, straightforward ways. There is evolutionary innovation, where there's really not a major change. You're working from something existing. There's transformational innovation, where there is a significant change in either a product or a service. Or there is revolutionary innovation, where there's the introduction of something totally new and totally different that did not exist before. And so thinking about these three forms of innovation, we think about how would you organize them into how would you classify them and organize them in some kind of a portfolio? And so if we say evolutionary activity is really where you refine things. These are refining events. And so they are efficiency oriented, they're improvement oriented. You tend to tailor your product or your service to already existing customer requirements. And sometimes an opportunity might come along where you can refine, let's say, the logistics process to achieve greater resource use. So your delivery system or your input system or your operations that happen in your plant, all these things are incremental improvements. So the bottom line here is that refining events are low risk and they have well-known processes. So they're easy to improve upon. That doesn't mean they're bad. It just means that they're easy. They're the low-hanging fruit of innovation portfolios. So a second level of portfolio organization would be where you have transformational activities. And these are what we call allocating events. And they allocate certain activities, they allocate certain resources in a way that is much more significant than the evolutionary stage. And so they are development oriented. They are creating something, modifying something that wasn't there before. And they differ from what was available before, and they differ clearly and markedly. And they accommodate shifting preference patterns. So they respond to marketplace shifts. They're not just directed at existing customer specifications, but they're helping to shift and change and modify customer expectations. And so the bottom line there is that allocating events, they're higher risk and they require greater investment because they do more and they create more potential of an innovation. So the third stage of portfolio organization is what we would call that incorporates revolutionary activity. And these are catalytic events. You're creating something new that did not exist before, a whole new category. And they break the mold from past results, and they produce an unexpectedly high level of activity. And that activity is really inside the organization, and it is required as a high level of activity because it is a major change from what the organization has been doing before. And so, and not only a lot of activity, but there's unexpected forms of activity. So if you're doing an innovation in an organization that hasn't done something like this before, you're going to be dealing with new tools, new talent, new ways of people working together, all kinds of things that are different. And so catalytic events, as the bottom line, have high risk and high investment and the prospect of high returns. And so there's a big bet on revolutionary activity. And that's why probably you see firms that have a relatively small amount of this type of activity in their portfolio. So now let's look at the virtual portfolio. And the virtual portfolio is a place where ideas, innovative ideas, can be organized, and they can be classified in the same way that we've talked about the types of innovations. They can be evolutionary innovations, they can be transformational innovations, or they can be revolutionary innovations. And you can see going from the bottom to the top how some of these categories really do reflect what we just saw before. They're typically a lot more evolutionary innovation ideas, and there are fewer transformational ideas, and there are even fewer revolutionary ideas that show up in an organization. And so if we take this virtual portfolio here, this big triangle, this big pyramid, and if we divide it in two, on the left-hand side, we've got what we call infield opportunities. And on the right-hand side, we have what we call outfield opportunities. And another way of saying that would be infield opportunities are internal to the organization. They are opportunities that would be primarily leveraged for improving the way in which an organization operates. Outfield or external opportunities are those kind of opportunities that would play out in the marketplace, play out in a user community. So they would be outside the organization. And so this is just simply a way of thinking about how you can divide up and classify different types of innovations. You can classify them in terms of their potential internal application or their external application, or you can classify them as evolutionary, transformational, or revolutionary. And so by classifying these things, what you begin to do is to set up a way in which you can allocate resources to them, the way in which they show up in some strategic way in your organization, either to improve your organization or to move into the marketplace. So where do these virtual portfolios fit with what we would call a real portfolio? In any organization, the array of strategies and the array of innovation activities that are going on that they're actually being used either internally or externally are what we would call a real portfolio. Those are the things that a company or an organization or a firm is actually using and employing and applying. A virtual portfolio is a, if you will, a holding tank of ideas. And it's classified in the same way that the real portfolio might be classified. And so if you look at this diagram here, you can say that, like we mentioned earlier in the notion of an entrepreneurial event, an ideas bank begins to trigger activity that with some champion instigation, some champion support, some champion approval, you can place and categorize an innovative idea into a virtual portfolio. And then that virtual portfolio remains a resource of opportunities that can be launched at some point in time, at the appropriate time, when the marketplace suggests or when there is an internal need. And so innovative ideas move from the innovation portfolio, they get launched, and then they become active in the real portfolio. And so then there is what we would call upstream thinking and downstream thinking, and we're going to look at that. Upstream thinking is where you're looking at ways in which you can get creative input and development of potential innovative ideas and how they are put together and assembled in a virtual portfolio. And these virtual portfolios actually draw upon idea banks managed by innovation champions, people who are working the employee base to develop ideas and to look for opportunities. And virtual portfolios actually do serve as the long-range part of an organization's innovation strategy. So if you don't have innovative ideas in your virtual portfolio, you don't have a future direction in which you might be headed. On the other hand, downstream thinking is where this is where the action is occurring. This is where the operational activity of the organization is occurring. And real portfolios are the result of innovation projects that have actually been launched as a result of some kind of an entrepreneurial event that happened inside the organization, where there was a realization that this idea could actually be applicable as an innovation. So real portfolios actually draw upon venture team efforts, and real portfolios serve as I say, the operational part of an organization's strategy that meet external market needs or user needs, or they sometimes may include things that are improvements to the internal operations of an organization. So, what are the values of innovation portfolios? Well, they're valuable because they are essential in order to drive what it is that an organization does with its innovation strategy. And if you've got innovation portfolios, and those have to really be balanced between virtual and real. If your virtual portfolio tank is empty, you don't really have anything to move into the real innovation portfolio. So that is the holding tank and the way in which you move things forward. And innovation portfolios require balance between internal applications for efficiency and improvement, and then external marketplace opportunities. And so, in order to continue to operate and to continue to be effective, you have to have innovations that work and improve the way in which a company operates. And with that, then you are at the level, you've raised yourself to the threshold of being able to produce innovations that can be moved into the marketplace and the user community.